Stella, my name is Seipati Mokhuoa. I am the Chief Executive of Southern African Women in Leadership. I'm very excited to have you as one of our inaugural Trailblazers for 2020. This is my co-pilot, Dr. Brough from the Brough Leadership Institute. It really is such an honor to have you here. But before we get into the interview, can you just tell us a little bit about Stella? Who is she? What is she about? And how did she earn a seat at this beautiful table of Trailblazers?
Thank you very much for having me. I must start by saying that it's such an honor. I don't normally get awards. I always hide behind the big pots in the village. But I've already told you I'm a village girl. I'm popularly known as Ma Stella at the University of Johannesburg. I grew up in Limpopo. I completed my primary school and high school there, right in a small town called Phalaborwa, and then moved to Johannesburg to study like anybody else who thinks green pastures are found in Gauteng. So that's when I came to study. But literally, the beautiful story about my life is that when I came to Johannesburg, I volunteered to study, to tutor information technology, because I called my then thought bright mother to say, I'm struggling with coding, with development software. Being a wise woman as she is, she advised me to say, volunteer to be a tutor, because that's the only way you learn, by teaching others. And I didn't know at that time that I will sit in the same set as the HOD of the very same department where I was a student and volunteered as a tutor. I think that's where the servant leadership started. And yeah, that's in summary who I am.
Wow, that's beautiful. So once again, congratulations from my side. I'm going to hand over to Dr. Andy now to ask his questions.
Lovely. Dr. Stella Bvuma, you are actually the head of department now at the University of Johannesburg's Applied Information Systems. Yep. What does that mean? What do you do in terms of applied information systems for those who maybe don't have an IT background?
Okay, it's IT people, we like fancy names. It's basically information systems. But from our own perspective is that we differ from computer science because we apply the technologies that enable businesses to succeed. So we don't build the robots. We tell you how this robot is going to work or is going to really create employment or either create unemployment. So that's basically what we do. So we talk about the enabling technology for a particular business. So that's basically what information system is all about.
So Stella, what's your view on the fourth and emerging into the fifth industrial revolution and the role that IT will play and the space that will create or not, particularly for women in leadership? There's kind of a three-pronged question in there.
Okay, I think firstly, in terms of the fourth industrial revolution and how it's going to emerge into the fifth, basically, for me, it's technology, because I come from a space of technology being an enabler. I don't celebrate technology, but I look at it as how is it going to help my people in the rural areas? How is it going to, address our socioeconomic challenges, not necessarily looking at it as, something that we embrace or rather not embrace. You can embrace it, but it doesn't mean that technology comes with all the solutions. So ours is to be honest and say, look, it looks good, but in terms of the African content, it might create problems. In particular, if you look at women, women have been sidelined for quite some years. And I'm sad to say that even in my lifetime, I might not see the revolution that women are seeking. But at the same time, technology can enable us and allow us to contribute positively into the economy, especially the fourth and the 5th generation technologies that we're talking about. I'm thinking of my aunties in the farms. I'm thinking of the small business owners. I'm thinking of women who are mothers like me, running a department. I'm thinking of women in education, women in health. So the use of technology, if it's deployed with the thinking of our African problems, African solutions, absolutely can be positive. Not just taking everything, otherwise we're going to end up being constipated, and you just need to digest it nicely and make sure it's set in nicely.
Stella, do you have any thoughts on the potential threat that AI and robotics would place on the labor market? I mean, there is a school of thought that says the more that this technology advances, the fewer jobs there will be. Do you hold that view, or do you look at it differently?
Well, in both sides, because like I said, African problems, African solutions, and technology-wise as well is the same thing. But at the same time, I guess we don't have much of a choice. You know, if you look at what COVID has done now in terms of technology adoption, ours is just to prepare and make sure that we upskill. The biggest concern that I have is, are we going to be able to catch up at the speed that technology is moving? Are we all going to be able to upskill? I'm looking at our education systems, and I'm not taking higher education. I'm looking at lower education, because I was part of the train a teacher on the tablet training pilot with the MEC in Gauteng. And I mean, that's the reality on the ground, is that it's very scary. But at the same time, you know, one has to do what it has to, we have to do to make sure we move as fast as possible. And that's why I'm not an academic in the office. You know, I always tease my dean to say, if you're looking for me, you'll find me in the village. You look for me, you'll find me in the township. Look for me, you'll find me with the SMME. Because I think, you know, some positions you are placed there for a reason. And for me, it's more of a calling of what more one can do to address this really big challenge of unemployment that is increasing. And of course, creating the digital gap and the transformation comes in the picture, which we want to address.
Now, Stella, you mentioned the township. I know that you're also involved in 10, in the township entrepreneurial network. Maybe just share with the viewers a little bit about your involvement there, if you would, please.
Okay, the 10 was started by a very smart young boy who wanted to develop and empower the SMEs in the townships. So what basically I do there is just to give them advice and to make sure that they are not excluded into participating exclusively into this technology. And you know, we talk about inclusivity. And when we talk inclusivity of the economy, we're not talking just about a different race or different gender. And in terms of small business as well, is to say to them, how do they then participate into this, you know, fourth industrial revolution, into this wider economy? Because if I look at a mother that I trained just on using a calculator, when they sell their fat cooks, they started with selling 300 rands a day. And just by being able to calculate and be able to use a simple technology such as, you know, a calculator, they were able to move from 300 rands, you know, to 1,000 a day, not a month, a day. And this woman is the one that's educating their kids at a university. And I think for me, it's just a big fulfillment to participate in that space, because that, you know, I know what it means to educate just one family. And it's more like you are educating the communities. And I hold them to account to say, when we have educated you, you need to ensure that you go back to the community, you plant back, you talk about, you know, the right qualification, you go plant back into the education system, you know, be it primary, preschool, and just create employment as much as you can, because it makes a huge difference for people in my village and in my township.
I want to take you back, Stella, to a younger version of Stella Bvuma. Maybe you're just finishing school, you're starting out at university. What words of wisdom would you give to yourself if you were back at that age now? Knowing what you know now, what would you tell that younger Stella?
I would still say, go for it. You know, I will still say, be courageous. Your village does not define you. The fact that you didn't have